get started.
Okay. Straighten my back. I've been working on my posture.
Right.
Suck it in, boys.
Don't even get me started on that. Okay, 3, 2. Hello and welcome to the Battlefield Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about ministering to our youth with Pastor Jared Stovall. Stay tuned.
Did you say Stovall?
Oh man, okay, say it again.
Stovall?
Stovall.
Stovall.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not
All
a,
the
it's a
stoves?
B. Okay, Stovall. Okay, my bad. Stovall.
I say you leave all this in.
Yeah.
I think it works.
Well, I did last time his
Stovall.
fiduciating.
What would you call it? Fiduciary?
Fiducialing, yeah.
Fiduciary?
I didn't even come up with that. My family
great.
came up with that.
That was great.
Okay,
Can we just go with it?
yeah, let's just go.
All right.
All right, we're here.
Welcome back. Glad you guys are here today for another episode of The Battlefield. And I won't bore you with what The Battlefield is all about. I hope you already know what it is all about because we want to dive right into it. Today we have a special guest with us, the great and mighty pro wrestler, not pro wrestler, Jared Stovall.
Yeah.
Stovall.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Welcome, man. It's
Thanks for
good
having
to-
me. Yeah, this is gonna be great.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do.
Oh, who I am? Well, I was born in this city,
Okay.
and so I've lived here most of my life. And yada yada yada. I'm a teacher, and this is going to be my 11th year. Starting next month will be my 11th year teaching. And a couple years ago, I got into pro wrestling. So now I'm a pro wrestler too. We do wrestling shows where we share the gospel. So every place we go, we do church camps and all kinds of stuff to share the gospel too. And throughout many of those years, I've been in ministry. So at the church that we were at together, plugging in all kinds of different places. And now that we're here, now I'm a youth pastor here also. So really busy, doing a lot of really cool things. Yeah.
And married to a beautiful Mississippi girl
Yes.
and an adopted son.
Absolutely.
So cool.
I thought we were looking at ministry world, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Went to college at Bible College in Mississippi, and met my wife through we were at the same church, and brought her back.
Yeah.
And then, just a few years ago, we brought in, we had this kid kind of fall in our lap, and he needed a place, and we had space. And then fast forward, now he's adopted. He's part of our family.
That's so
It's
awesome.
Really, really exciting.
You have an amazing story.
He fits right into our group. Sometimes it's like, how are you not our blood because you were just like us? It's really exciting. Yeah.
Well, a lot of things in our world are changing, and we see it often represented in the way our youth act, interact, react, all of those types of things. And so what we wanted to do was take an opportunity to just discuss what kind of like you're seeing in youth ministry, how you're seeing the kids are different, how they process things different, how they view scripture, like just all kinds of different, their faith walk, all of those things. I know, things have changed quite a bit from the time you were a youth, I was a youth, you were a youth, you were a youth, and now, kids have, brain rot and the Gen Z, Gen Alpha speak and all of that type of stuff. My personal, just before we kind of dig into that, is I often hear people say about church and youth and other stuff is, oh, they're the future of the church. And there's a reality to that, that's true, but we've often not, in churches, we haven't done a great job of recognizing that they are part of the church now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like we have in church, by and large, you're like, wait till you become an adult, then you can start serving. Wait till you, and instead of teaching them some of those things now, like even on discipleship front, like, these kids know all this stuff. Like we get to a point where some kids, they graduated high school, they can vote, and they're either going into the military, college, or the workforce, and we don't trust them to run a soundboard at the church.
Mm-hmm.
Like things like that.
And the question is, when do they become the church? If they're the future,
Right.
When is the future?
When is the future? And we, so there's all of these things, and we often don't realize, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, how young a lot of the people were in the Bible because we tend to read our age into Scripture, but a lot of them were pretty young. Even the apostles, they were pretty young when they met Jesus. So before we go into like what you're seeing in ministry and stuff like that, what was youth ministry for everybody growing up?
Well, I was in the choir. I was in the drill team. We would go to different churches, especially during the summer, and do like little performances. So we were really into doing those things, but I can't really say I was really discipled or taught the actual living word. You read the Bible, but it's different when you understand the word is living and that it can help you in your everyday life, not just on a Sunday. We did all those things. We went to the church. We had the fun and all that, but I didn't really understand who God was and know who God was until I got older. And then I see the need for us to disciple the youth. That was a great question. When do they become the church? Yeah. Actually, when they're youth, because I think when I was young, that's what they were doing. Oh, let's let them do their little kid things and not give them much responsibility. And then when they get older, they're just going to naturally just go into it. When I got here, I really learned about discipleship, and I realized, oh, wow, I was not discipled when I was young. I didn't even know the Great Commission. I didn't know a lot of the things that you really need to really understand what God did for us and how to apply it in your life. So I can totally relate with that disconnect between the kids, just kind of, you let them be kids, and versus really bringing up young disciples.
Yeah, because I think a lot of parents and even churches, they expect there to be like this switch that happens.
Yes.
And like, okay, you turn 18 or you graduate and all of a sudden now you can handle all this responsibility. But you haven't trained them to handle that responsibility. It's reason like I think youth ministry is more of this bridge between childhood and adulthood. Teenage years are in general. How are we preparing them, for that next season? So yeah, for me it was growing up in the 90s, kind of the youth. The 90s are a weird, church-wise, youth group in the 90s, and it was crazy. And now, unfortunately, we've seen so many of those people we idolized during the 90s. I'm thinking of like Michael Tate and some of these other big name ones that, oh man, they've been doing some crazy stuff for a long time, very ungodly, and, makes you question a lot of things, But yeah, so in the 90s, it was youth group extreme. Everything had to be extreme. Everything was about, youth are crazy and energetic, and it was what I call children's ministry 2.0. You went from children's ministry where you did all the stuff to children's ministry 2.0 that you called youth ministry, but it was really just about fun and games on that level. It really wasn't about discipleship growth and helping them to own their faith or wrestle with the big questions of what happens when someone you might idolize as either a teacher or a band or something like that walks away from the faith or does something that destroys somebody's life or something like that. So that was kind of me. It was like, oh, I've got to be extreme, and so because of that, into my adulthood years, I was following guys that, man, they weren't the normal guys. They were the ones that stood out, and they were,
the power team.
Yeah, you had
all that
stuff.
I did. Yeah. They used to rip them out. The phone books, yeah.
But it was all about that extreme.
Kids today, what's a phone book?
Yeah, no, that's
true. Yeah, it's like the thing, do the symbol for a phone.
Yeah.
We all do this. Kids today do this.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they've never held something in their hand that, it's like that. But yeah, it was always about extreme. So then what happened was we were never taught how do you live a day-to-day Christian walk, Yeah, so that's what it was for me. What about you guys?
I grew up in the 70s and early 80s. I lived the Stranger Things, E.T., Kids on Bikes. We got up in the morning. Upside down. Okay. Yeah, we got up in the morning. We roamed the neighborhood, rode our bikes, just played everywhere, went everywhere. We would go in people's houses and raid the fridge. Nobody cared. And we would all go home when the streetlights came on. And a lot of times my mom would ring a cowbell and we'd go home so I wasn't exposed to church. I didn't go to church. I'm trying to think. I think all of my friends, none of them went to church except for maybe one, and he was a Catholic. So I didn't have exposure to youth group or church or the gospel or anything. And when we got to about middle school level, we were not ready. all the girls started looking different, and all we got exposed to a whole bunch of things that we weren't ready for, and without any guidance, we were quickly lost and aimless and got involved in crazy stuff. And that is from total lack of anything, very little parental influence, no gospel influence, definitely no Bible influence, nothing but just catering to our own whims. And when we needed stuff, we'd go to our parents and they'd give us money to go to the comic book store or Dairy Queen or whatever we needed. And so we were not ready when life started to take a turn. And most of those guys, if not all of them, I don't even know where most of them are. I know one of them is an atheist. Almost all of them got involved in drugs in some way. And some of them, I think, did find the Lord, but not till their 30s. So yeah, I mean, I'm not casting any shade on that up. We had a great time, but we were not ready when life came for us, and even more so when the enemy came for us. We were not ready. So that's my exposure. Definitely needed a youth group. I think I'm trying to remember. I think I went to a VBS one time in the summer when I was smaller with a friend of mine. And it scared me to death because they pulled you in the office, by yourself with all these guys, and they tried to lead. What they were trying to do is lead me to the Lord, but it scared me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go back because I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't want to go back, and so I don't know if that marked me or not, but that's pretty much the only exposure. When I went to visit my grandparents, we would go to church on Sunday. It was a Presbyterian church, and all I remember from that is my granddad taking a nap. That's how impactful it was.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's my youth group experience. 0. Man, so important. What you do is so vital to the church.
And you guys have Jared's is going to be a little bit unique because you were the pastor of the church that he went to the youth group at. So
I watched him grow up, and he was in the youth group. He and his brother and sister were in the youth group, and I watched him grow up. I got great stories, great memories. We've done, camps together. Watched him go off to college, get married. Yeah, so he's been a part of my ministry life pretty much since the beginning. Yeah. And it is a huge blessing to see what the Lord's doing in your life. I just cherish it. Mm-hmm. And we've been together a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
That's cool. And my earliest church memory is pre-youth group. It was just some kids' Sunday school class. And it always felt so fake. It was before I came to EPC. We were a little bit bigger church, and I remember there's a couple. I don't know if they're married. I don't know, just a guy and a girl. And he played the piano, and it all just seemed so fake. He had to dress super nice, and he sit in the chairs, and it felt artificial. I didn't really care. Parent stuff, family drama. We stopped going to church. And then my friend invited me to go to EPC. It's right down the street, right down the other block of our house. Like we were on one end of the block, we walked the other end, and there was a church. So, kudos to friends inviting people to church.
Mm-hmm.
I get you there. That's how I got there. But I got there, 5th grade maybe. So my brother was in a youth group, and my sister was younger. So I remember a few years kind of figuring out, and then we would invite our friends. So we had all kinds of other kids from my school that would come to church. They never really seemed to get it. They were just there for food. They were Wednesday night meals, But then going up to the youth group, and the journey continued. I think I counted one time we had like 7 different youth pastors because somebody would come in and fill in for a few years and then check out. Somebody else would step in and fill the role. So it was a lot of different people. A few very important people in that time made big impacts on what it means to be a youth leader, what it means to be a Christian. Yeah, Tim Cox was super pivotal.
I knew he was going to come up.
Super pivotal. He's all the youth pastors like, hey, it's cool. Yeah, I'm a youth, but when he came on board, man, it was really connected. It really felt like he belonged, and it really felt like he cared, which was different than the rest. I'm sure they all kind of gave off that vibe too, but man, really. He went the extra mile, pulling up to your house to pick you up, to take you somewhere, like all kinds of things. Super, super pivotal. And then he moved off to do Army stuff, and he didn't come back from that one. which was really tough. Then we got another youth pastor from straight out of college, and that's when a lot of the growth really kicked in. As I was getting older, he was kind of planted there, Joe Stitt, and they really grabbed a hold of youth ministry. And they weren't there to fill in; they were there to minister. They gave me opportunities to teach class a few times, which was really scary and cool at the same time. Our youth group was getting bigger. For a lot of time, it was kind of just me and one or two other people that was the youth group, and there would be people that would come and then go and come and then go.
Most of them were my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got a whole another crew as I got older into high school, and they kind of stuck around, and some of them took it more serious too, and we had obviously some that didn't take it serious. But again, the importance of having other people, other friends, is very influential. Having a small youth group is more difficult for that growth. Yeah, so I remember he took us, some of us under his wing of like, you guys are kind of the standouts of the leaders of taking us serious as a youth group and want to lead and want to honor God with how you live. So he kind of brought us into a smaller group of additional teaching, like discipleship. We didn't call it discipleship, but that's what it was. Kind of pouring into us a little bit differently than just a general youth group. So yeah, that's kind of my youth group experience of. It looked fake, and then went somewhere else, and it was fun to do, and then it became as I took my faith more seriously, as they were pushing take your faith more seriously, and both of those together helps with the growth, I think. And then I went to college. I got called to be a pastor at a youth camp. I got called to be in ministry. I didn't even know it was a pastor. I was like, I don't know. I'm called to ministry. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to go to this college. I'm going to do this thing. I don't know. Yeah, God used all that, and went to Bible college, and here I am years later. So youth group is pivotal. Youth group is important. Friends in the youth group is probably the biggest thing. A youth pastor who cares, and having friends who also take it serious. That's the secret sauce, I think.
So this, as we said earlier, this younger generation now, it's a little bit different. Things are different. We hear words thrown around like deconstruction. We got other things like that. We now do have to clear us. So like, I know I fit into the millennial category. I'm an elder millennial, the upper end of the millennial. You're in the Gen X?
Mm-hmm. Millennial.
I don't track any of that stuff. I just live my life.
Yeah. What year were you born?
88.
88. So
Yeah.
that would be past millennial.
I think it's at the end. I think it's at the end.
It's at the end of millennial?
I think so.
Because millennials like that
Charlotte,
little
my wife
in
knows all these
between.
things.
Yeah.
She knows everything. I don't know.
Get her up on the phone.
Yeah.
No. It's because like for a long time, people were saying they thought every young generation was just called millennial. Like that's what they just said.
It is true.
We're up to Gen Alpha now, so we went Gen X, Z, millennial was in there, and then now we're Gen Alpha. That's the youngest generation right now. So it'd be like your kids and stuff like that. So when you're looking at it, what are your perceptions right now of the younger generations, of youth and younger? Like when we say youth, we're usually referring to middle school and high school. So maybe we'll clarify that. I know for some churches they say youth and it's everybody that's not an adult.
Yes.
But what do you think about? Like, what do you see? What have you observed? What have you heard? Because I think that shapes our perceptions of how we minister. So what do you guys think? Anybody?
They're being raised by the digital age, and that is impact that, especially my kids, they're younger. I have to sometimes, hey, stop this to go out there and do this because they'll be on their phone. Because from a very young age, we set it to where there's no screen time during the week. And they can get screen time on the weekend, and they got used to that. But where we went wrong is, and there's always something you think you got it planned out, is that we didn't set that time limit on the weekend. And sometimes, if we don't have nothing to do, I'll be looking around and they'll be on that thing the whole day. It's like they're catching up for the week. Yeah. And where I didn't grow up with the tablet or anything like that, we were bored sometimes. They have no time for boredom. It's like sometimes my son would be playing the video game, and then while it's loading, he'll pick up the phone, twitching. I'm just seeing that we have to be more diligent even on what's on this phone. So now, like I was saying with Pastor Mark, sometimes you worry about your kids outside, and now you also have to worry about stuff on the phone can be detrimental to their different things, to where it's their thought processes and all these different things. So I have to guard them like double time. And they're so connected with it because they grew up with it. They don't know anything. When I talk about, hey, we didn't have that, they can't even fathom not having a phone or a screen. Or you have to approach it different. So when I think about the youth today, especially in the middle school, that's when they also start to think they know everything. And I don't know anything, but then their friends all do. So that this technology has really affected who they are and, how they're being taught.
Yeah, I think it might have been my kids' generation. They've never known a life without like handheld technology like this and social media. And social media is shaping a lot of how people process, how they view themselves, how they view others and stuff. But because the furthest you could get away from how your home growing up is as far as your legs could carry you, or your bike, or something like that. Now, we literally, you could be talking to somebody on the other side of the world, and if they're have the wrong intents, they can do damage and stuff like that. What about anybody else? I know for my kids growing up, they're in that range, trying to be very protective about the technology. And so we had filters and things so that there were some things they couldn't access, and it would give us updates about if there were certain keywords used, certain apps.
Oh, that's powerful.
Just to help. But then what we tried to do is, as they were intentionally growing up, or as they were growing up, and we were intentional about while they were growing up, changing some things, so that we started entrusting them with more things. And some people can't handle the burden of freedom, and so we're trying to teach our kids to do that, and that meant they made mistakes, and we helped walk through the consequences with them, things like that. But what I see in the young generation, what I've read and everything, is kids that have grown up in this digital media world, like I forget what the thing is, like we see like 27,000 a day, something like that on average. Right. So you think about it, you saw an advertisement for something when you looked at the newspaper, when you watched the TV, or you're driving down the road and you saw a billboard. But of course with devices, like everything is so ad-based that kids are used to being sold stuff. And they don't value a slick sales pitch, they value authenticity and genuineness. And that's what I kind of see. And I think that's what is kind of at the heart of people talking about deconstructing their faith, is realizing like, oh gosh, the dude that got up in front of the church, in the church, and he's all smiling, no hair is out of place, and he talks about how his family's perfect and stuff. That's the same dude that did this thing over here. And so what happens is, I think the deconstruction stuff, I think, is a great thing, because it's actually, people are actually wrestling with their faith. What do I actually believe? And a lot of people that have gone through kind of deconstructing and doing all that, then they started, after they like, okay, what does my faith actually say? What do I actually believe? Then they start kind of putting it back together. So what doesn't get reported on a lot is what's called reconstruction. And that is that there's a lot of people that deconstructed their faith to try to understand, because they were just taught what to do. They weren't told why they should do it, any of that. As they've reconstructed their faith, and they have a stronger faith now, right? And so I see kids they're desiring authenticity and genuineness. So that's what I see.
I think that mine comes right off of that. I don't walk in a lot of circles with a lot of young people anymore. My exposure to young people is through my grandkids, to the young people that come to our church, from doing our speaking in the schools a little bit, and then of course where I work, but it's still not a lot. But I think the overarching thing that I see is a great sense of confusion. Who am I? Where do I belong? What's right? What's not right? What does this mean? What's that mean? They're trying to make sense of everything they see on that, everything they hear and see at school, everything we try and teach them. And they're trying to mash it into all of this, their own hearts and minds, and trying to have it make sense. And so I see a great sense of confusion, and they are hungry. Like you said, they want to know the truth. Of course, they all want to belong to something, but I don't know that they know how to find the truth or how to look, because they're just big walking sponges. So I see that confusion. That's why I love it when the light comes on, because man, when they get serious, it's super cool. So
And you talk about the confusion, and you talked about all the access to information. Yeah. So now you have fake news, and now I understand that the youth, they're, like you just said, they're yearning for stuff. And so they're taking in all these different avenues of information, and the way it's fed to them, like you said, it could be from something they admire. So this must be the truth. And this must be true. Taking in from my parents and all this information all at once, especially nowadays, thanks to the internet. And so that confusion. So I think it's on us to really help them.
Reel the other day, Shaquille O'Neal on a talk show. I don't remember who it was, with Jimmy Fallon or somebody. He's talking about insurance and how the insurance is messed up everything. And I was like, watching, I was like, kind of ridiculous. Him talking about insurance. Yeah. And then I caught a little glimmer of it was fake. They AI'd his mouth to do this thing. But it took me like really locking in. Like, oh, I see what it is. So, I mean, not only are kids confused because so much information coming at them, but now with AI coming in, anybody can say anything, and we're like, oh, he said it. It must be.
Yeah, and I think that's where the value of in-person interactions is going to become more and more important. Because I think as we have access to more and more information, like we're not information poor. Like we have access to more information than ever in history, and we're getting dumber. Like we are, as a society, getting dumber. And you got to guard not just the young people, but the older people too, man. You know, like they'll share something and be like, look what, whatever this political person did. And they're like, yeah, that's not a real photo. And they're like, how do you know? It's like, well, he's got 12 fingers. Like, it's like,
I look at my grandkids' phones to kind of see, just what are they watching, And one of them, endless hours of girls putting on makeup.
Oh, yeah.
Another one is endless hours of video game walkthroughs. And another one is, I think he likes to watch the, where the blocks fit together.
Minecraft?
Yes. Just
Roblox?
Roblox and Minecraft, stuff like that. There's other things that they watch, and they're all basically harmless, but huge hunks of time on those three things. And just sit there and veg on it. And like, what is drawing them to that? Like, but that's where they go. Like when they have time and they can't do anything else, they go to that. What is that? But it's very odd to me.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I asked that, why do you want to watch somebody else playing the video game? And I try not to be too hard, because we got to meet them where they're at. I have to keep thinking this is how they grew up. Where I wanted to play the video game myself. I would never watch somebody else play a video game, but it's just different. So we have to approach it different. Otherwise, I have a fear of turning them away from listening to their dad, because they will spend hours doing that. Like I watch a movie, they'll sit there and watch somebody else. But you just ask them, what is interesting about that? What are you learning? And I just try to probe, because we have to connect with them where they're at instead of always beating down on them,
Well, and I think some of that is that there's this desire to be almost perfect, because that's what's being presented in all areas. So I don't want to play the video game and struggle through it and have to figure out I want to watch somebody else do it so I can go through it perfectly the first time. I can be better without the practice, right? And so that's one of the things that kids these days can be good as students, because they're good students of what they want to learn. But the same thing happened with us. I mean, when we're in youth, whatever we were interested in, that just was like the thing we were beamed in on. But I think that part of it is that, like, I mean, my son was off to college, and I hadn't really played video games very much for a while. And then, it was like, oh man, if I got a system that he and I could play, and we could be like just being able to talk, and that's kind of reignited a little bit of a decompression hobby for me, is to be able to play. But then there are things you run into. But like for me, it's like, oh, I'm doing this, I can't figure it out. Let me find like somebody that has figured it out. But the whole walkthrough thing, where you watch somebody play a video game from the beginning to the end, that's crazy, because there are some of those out there.
Yeah, they are 4 hours.
No. They're 60-hour videos of somebody going completely through a video game.
Oh, wow.
There's money doing that. They let while they're playing.
Yeah, Twitch and some of the other stuff like that. Yeah, they make a lot of money, and some of them do. It's like 1% of 1% or something. But
I like to think of it too, that they get to experience something without having to have to go experience. We watch National Geographic. You look through the magazines, look at that waterfall. Look at, to go to the Amazon, can you imagine being there? And they get to watch a video of somebody doing that. If I just want this makeup to do this thing, like they can watch somebody else put that on. So later when they have it, or my dad's not going to buy that video game. If I can watch somebody play it and experience it, you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. But you don't have to buy in. You don't have to pay it. You just like watching a movie. Like we like the action because it's exciting. Yeah, it gives us pumps. That's something that they're latching onto. Those extended, the same voice, the same people. They'll mix in stories while they do those kinds of things and interact with people. It becomes kind of a social thing, even though it's video. There's some socializing that happens while they're just watching somebody else do it.
You think it's kind of almost like they think that that's their friend?
Yeah. Well, because it's a form of, like, one of the things when I was younger, there was a couple of things that I tried to avoid so I wouldn't get, because there was addiction in our family story and all this, was that, I didn't touch alcohol, drugs, any of that type of stuff, but boy, in my teenage years, young adult years, video games became something I was pretty addicted to, and then of course, the P word and all that stuff. But the thing was I found that the reason I was running those things, because two things: I could control it, and I was accepted. I was always accepted, and kids are looking for that, and I think kids are also desiring to be unique in some way. So a lot of kids, they don't play the game to enjoy the game. They play the game to find the glitches.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're just concerned. Oh, I found a glitch. Nobody else knows about this glitch. This glitch is, and they're just trying to find the mistake. And so that's the reason that in the teenage years, kids tend to get to where if it's popular, they're like anti-popular, right? They're like, I don't like this. I like this one band nobody's ever heard of, because you haven't heard of it because you're not as cool as me, right? But there's that desire to be unique, and in the process, in a world where we can communicate our lives in so many ways, trying to be unique becomes really, really hard. And I tell the football players when I talk to them, I was like, you guys are different, just like everybody else. You guys are unique, just like everybody else. And I was like, I can tell you what friend group you hang out with because you all dress the same. Yeah. But you think you're so different from, but within your group, you're just a copy of each other, But kids desire to be seen. They desire to be, like what Jared said, is like, when do they become a church member? When do we start viewing these kids as people?
Yeah.
Like, we don't treat them like they're people. That's the reason that we have to be very diligent, like as parents, is that the things we've taught them, we have to live out before them. Like, if we've told them, you mess up, you apologize, you seek forgiveness, and you do this, if you made them do it, you better do it when you mess up.
Adults gotta apologize too.
Yeah, otherwise, all they learn is, well, mom's a hypocrite, dad's a hypocrite. And once I become an adult, I don't have to do any of these things they taught me. So I think that impacts, because within church, that same thing's been communicated. Because if you can have a senior adult yell at somebody and be hateful to them, and they don't have to apologize, but yet we're going to make a sixth grader do it because they did it, now we've created this double standard. And it says, well, I can't wait till I can be spiritually mature so I don't have to act like Christ anymore. You see the false, the falsehood that's in there? But yeah, those things are crazy.
Jared, what do you see as the biggest obstacle to the gospel, like in youth work?
I know it's hard to get kids to see the future and the big picture, because it's the day-to-day. The reels are quick. Video games are quick. Even class sometimes is quick. When I teach sixth grade in public school, we have to do things in chunks to keep them engaged. So trying to teach them about bigger picture stuff and think about this. So when was it, or even reflecting, when is the time that you did this?
Wow.
They don't know. They can't draw from either one. It's just kind of the right now, this week, today kind of the moments. So it's harder to kind of get them to latch on to big stuff. So I really think it's just chip it away in the discipleship mode of come to class, just be there. They could kind of start to go that way. And it's always interesting, the new kids coming in the youth group, sixth graders versus 10, 11, 12 graders, how the difference of they've grown in. They see things differently. Man, it's hard for those 6th and 7th graders to stay engaged in class. Even though, the youth group is church, sometimes we do fun games and stuff. No, I don't really want to do that. We're playing a game. What are you talking about? They like, we'll just skip that. Just like they do when ads on their phone, skip that, I'm interested, skip that. I'll watch something else. But it's hard to keep them engaged, hard to get them hooked and interested, and then it's hard for them to see the long game. I mean, I guess it's always been hard. We were kids, it was hard for us to see the bigger picture, but I think that's a vital part of the Christian faith, is not just seeing this moment, and how does it affect everything else, your people, your time, your future. That's a big part, because everything's so fast. Everything's so fast. They've been telling us teachers 8 minutes, and a few years ago it was 10 minutes, and it was 8 minutes, and it was 6 minutes. Change it up every 6 minutes. Give them something to do, something different to do every 6
Man,
minutes.
that is fast.
So it's constantly keeping them engaged, which is crazy. Like, it's only a 40-minute class, but it's got to be quick, because that's what they used to seeing, was scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. That makes it difficult.
Yeah.
We do a lot of, I try to do a lot of discussing in youth group, talking about, ask them questions and get them going. Sometimes they don't want to, they don't have anything to draw from, but it's, I don't know, it's a slower pace than everything else. So that makes it more difficult too, because, I mean, part of your faith is owning your faith and having it real to you, and part of that is reflecting, part of that is digging deep, thinking about the hard questions. And we've taught our kids to study for a test, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. Study for the next test, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. You know, like you study for the 5th grade STAR
That's a building
test.
block that goes into the wall of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's harder to get them to attach to those things and retain it and see it's important. It's like, oh, yep, I answered that question. I don't have to listen anymore. I answered the question.
Yeah.
So it's hard for that longevity and the bigger scope stuff. I think is the most difficult part. Teaching youth. You said something I was going to respond to you earlier. I don't remember what you were saying.
Well, we are getting to that age.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I really appreciate about you, as our youth minister here, is that a lot of churches, and we've gone through seasons where we did this, a lot of churches just take somebody that's basically just graduated out of high school and then make them the youth guy because the youth leader. And there's a lot of danger in that. I mean, you guys know, that I really see a lot of the ways that the American church has done church not accomplishing the purpose that it hoped to accomplish. And, of course, it not being anywhere close to being biblical. We've created a lot of false divisions in church and things like that. And one of those things that we've unintentionally created with children's ministry and youth ministry is the outsourcing of discipleship to the youth pastor and children's ministers or pastors. Right? Is that we stopped teaching parents how to disciple their kids, and the parents did the same thing. Well, if I drop them off at church, I don't have to do it. Yeah. I don't have to answer questions. I don't have to know the Bible. I don't need to, And so, I've literally had times where parents would be like, my kid's interested in getting saved. Can they come meet you at the office? And I'm like, well, why don't you share that with them? Yeah. Why don't you just lead them to Christ? Well, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I am so guilty of that. When I was a senior pastor, Jared said, I think we had seven youth pastors. And that was probably within 10 years of his whole in there, Because we would meet as a church. I'm like, oh man, we got this thriving youth group. We need somebody to lead it. Oh, okay. And it was a warm body syndrome. And talking to some of the youth through the years, man, some of those people not being vetted and not knowing did some deep. Some of them were amazing, but some of them did some deep damage. And that is a sad, sad thing. But it happens all the time.
Yeah, I've been guilty as a senior pastor of that. And I think one of the things over the years of just knowing ministry and other things, some of the greatest youth ministers that I've ever known, and Jared is in this category, are guys that it wasn't young guys like young adults doing it. It was guys that had got some life on him a little bit. And, there was a guy that I knew that was in his 50s and 60s, and he was a youth pastor. He was awesome at it, And it was the guys that have grown up enough to know that you don't have to be the wild, crazy guy. Yeah. They need to know you care. You can facilitate some of that stuff for them, but then the being deep in your faith and caring enough about them to, at times, confront them, rebuke them, but also having grace for their mistakes and walking with them through things and knowing when's it appropriate that a youth brings something to you that, okay, we just need to keep this and keep that confidentiality. And then when they bring something like, I've got to talk to your parents about this, and those things can go to extremes. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that kids that end up, I think, coming back around to the faith, because our statistics still show that second year or by the end of the first year of college, whether they've gone to a Christian college or not, about 75% of young people will kind of walk away from the faith. They may not do it in their profession, but they do it in as far as what they're saying, but they do it with their church attendance and other stuff. But those that come back around, it's because there were some adults, particularly parents, that exemplified what a Christian walk was. Because a parent will have more impact on a kid, positive or negative, than anybody else will, generally.
And I think that's what I was going to say next. That's the biggest key, I think. Being a youth pastor and being a sixth grade teacher and even being a kid's wrestling coach, the biggest difference in all these kids is parents who live it out, parents who care, parents who disciple, parents who teach. In the classroom, you see the kids who their parents taught them manners, their parents taught them how to study, their parents taught them how to work hard, and you see the kids who they don't have that. They don't have any, and their siblings come in, and their siblings don't have it either. And it's rough. In the youth group, you see kids who their parents take their faith seriously, and so they can answer from a place of still growing, but early faith. This is what I've heard. This is what I've learned. This is what my parents say. This is what I see my mom do. This is what I see my dad do. That I don't know. Maybe it's a big letdown of the church, a fumble that we haven't taught our young adults, young parents, how to disciple their own kids. Because we often put it on like adults, be adults, and kids, be kids, grow in the faith. But how do you teach the discipleship of the home? How do we equip our parents to raise kids? Because when you think about it, all the young parents are just big kids. They just grown up and this is what we do, I guess. Now we got a baby. I got to figure out how to do it. And they don't know what to do. They're just kind of fumbling through life, and they make mistakes. And we, just like you said, parents got to apologize too. Adults got to own up to their stuff too. But how do you teach that to kids? Because we don't know.
Right.
I hear you say all the time, raising your kids, like, we're just trying to do the best we can, and we're doing this, and it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and here we go. But how can we cultivate that? That's probably where we need to start headed. Is how do we not just disciple here at church, but how do we equip them to disciple at home?
Well, I heard of something the other day that said, I didn't realize that when I was growing up, I looked at my parents, I didn't realize they were growing up with me.
Yeah.
Years
ago, that changed my.
Yeah, because we look at our parents, we figure they've got life figured out, but they're kind of going through it, trying to figure it out, and
they've never been a parent. Now we have Austin. We've adopted Austin. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And he's never had parents who cared, and we never had a kid who cared to care for. Like we don't know. Let's figure it out together. Right. And we're open about that. So it's hopeful that he's grown. But as a kid, like raising a kid, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, and I think that the reason a lot of parents don't kind of intentionally step into discipleship is because they look at their parents and they think that their parents had it all figured out, and they don't feel like they have it figured out. So then what they do is like, well, I'm not qualified to do that. I need to outsource that to someone who has it figured out, right? And we outsource everything to the quote unquote experts, but then eventually, and it's now my kids are out of the house and all that stuff, but I'm realizing like, man, I still don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
Because the moment you figure out how to be the parent of a kid, they become a teenager.
Yeah.
And then now I got to figure out how to be the parent of a teenager, and then they are hitting these different problems and phases of life, and so I think parents always feel like they're kind of on their heels a little bit, and so I think it's a monumental thought to even think about being intentional. And I think a lot of people aren't intentional because they're so busy. They're just trying to survive.
And they don't want to take time out of their busyness, or they can't. They feel like they can't take time to drill down into that and to figure out, to be real with how they are. I don't really know what I'm doing. See, nobody wants to admit that for anything. We can kind of do it in joking and jest, like, yeah, we don't really know. to be for real about that's hard
Yeah.
to own that and confess that. But it's so helpful when you just, hey, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure it out. And for me, it's kind of freeing. Like, I make a mistake, it's not a big deal. Because I struggle a lot with giving myself grace and patience, because I think I should be perfect already. In my first few years as a teacher, and in the 6th grade, there was another teacher who's kind of my mentor, and I was like, she's got it all together. I want to be that. And my wife's like, you've only done this for a year. Like, you don't know. Like, you're still learning. But I want to be best. Owning and admitting I don't know what I'm doing, and kind of dealing with that and realizing, oh, it's all growing. I don't know. And it helps you to be open to also apologize on things, accept defeat, and to regroup and to keep going. So how do we teach that? How do we let all the other adults in on the secret?
Well, and I think a lot of people don't see their need for something. Well, they're not interested in something until they're put in the position to see that they need to know that thing, right? So like we see a lot of people, they're like, why didn't they teach us how to balance checkbooks in school? Well, like they taught you all the skills how to balance the checkbook. You just weren't listening, right? Because that is the what is it?
Balancing a checkbook.
It's not a thing anymore. What's your checkbook? Right? Yeah. Do you call them up to get the? But you didn't see the need for those skills at that time, and so then you didn't pay attention to them. The same thing is true of like parents. Like one of the things we tried to do is as our kids got older, and especially on things that I didn't know what to do, I kind of let the kids in on that conversation and be like, all right, if I make this decision, I think it's going to go this way. If we make this decision, it's going to go this way. And I'm not sure about this whole thing in the middle or this or that. And man, I'm really scared. And I'm afraid I'm going to mess up, and then I'm going to let y'all down, or I'm going to let the church down, or I'm going to damage this relationship, or this thing's going to happen. And it's crazy. What's really crazy, and it feels awesome and humbling at the same time, that when you're doing that as an adult and your kids tell you something back that you told them years ago.
Oh, yes. I agree, man. And I think we need to teach them victory in Christ. And what I mean by that is if we go through something, I'm going to say, I don't know what this is, but I know if we turn back to God, let's go to God. We've been talking about God. We're basing everything we do on God. We need to continually go back to Him. So even when we don't figure it out together, we know to God, give His peace, and then wait for the answer. Because a lot of times I think we force fake victories because we don't want to be wrong. So I'm going to make up something and hopefully that's right, when this isn't what we are taught. This isn't what God told us to do. So we need to be teaching them how to do it. But that starts with us too. When we started having kids, I didn't realize how much pressure is on the teachers at our school. Because if you don't have kids, you don't really worry about what's going on in elementaries. But when we started having kids, we started to realize how much y'all have to pay for things, how many troubled kids you have to deal with that's keeping you away from dealing with the other kids, and then how much the parents, they don't care. They're treating it like a daycare. They drop their kids off. Sometimes my kids would come home and be like, oh, they say crashed out today. And I'm like, man, that's like the 12th time. How are they allowing this to keep going on? Because it takes away from the other kids. Well, we've called the parents, we've done this, and it's like, man, you guys are having to not only teach them, but raise these kids. Yeah. And that is not fair, and the parents need to be involved. So I'm really glad we're having that conversation about putting more pressure on the parents, and especially about discipleship. I remember talking to my sister not too long ago. My sister's like, I think she's 45. And it was me, my sister, my mom, and my wife. And we were talking about God. I was like, do you know God? I never heard you. And then my mom chimed in, well, she should know God. And my sister's like, why? She's like, well, I used to take you to Sunday school every day. And I was like, no, Mom, no, that she should know God because you taught her. You need to be teaching her. Even right now, you can do it, even at her age. But it was just kind of scary to say, whoa, parents are thinking that. They're thinking they dropped their kids off at church and y'all are supposed to do everything. And I was like, whoa, no, that's not the case. I view my family as my first disciples. Before I try to talk to anybody else, make sure my wife and my kids are straight, or at least moving in the right direction. I don't know everything, but at least moving in the right direction. Because, man, I did not realize how much pressure you guys, even the pastors before all this, that you guys have on, because some parents are really not intentional.
You're a unicorn.
Well, I'm learning from you guys.
No, you do a great job, and you're very intentional. But I think you're absolutely right about the pressure they're put on teachers, pastors, because And I jokingly say, people say they'll outsource discipleship to the professional Christians. And so then they want to overlook the things like that says that we're all ministers,
Yes.
and that the pastor's job is to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry and all that. But the same thing is true for teachers. And the thing is, though, that learning requires not just a teacher, it requires a student who wants to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So how does a student, like in a public school setting or any school setting, even at church, how does you equip a kid to have the desire to learn? That starts at home.
Yes.
And what we kind of have as a societal culture that we've developed in America is an anti-education sentiment and an anti-authority sentiment. Meaning we don't sit under anybody, we won't listen to anybody, we can't be told anything by anybody, and we already know everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then you got kids now that they're just, everybody wants to say, I'm just built different, I'm just built different. I'm like, your chest got smaller when you did that. Like if you build different, your chest gets bigger when you flex. But dealing with all the football players and stuff that we get the opportunity to be with them, they'll say things like, I have a lot of grace for them because they're kids trying to figure out life, and life's about to smack them in the face hard, But one of them, like at the end of the game, where this kid, he played horribly, right? And unfortunately, he was a starting quarterback, and at the end of the game, he's like, yeah, thanks, coach, for all the bad plays. And I just kind of like, but he didn't run the plays. You were the one that threw the interceptions. You were the one that fumbled the ball. You were the one that did this. I said, you can't blame the coach for how you played, And that's kind of what we've done. And unfortunately, and this is not to bash on any generations, but that sentiment has been passed down for several generations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the reason I get frustrated with older people complaining about younger generations. And I was like, well, who raised us? You want to talk about how bad this generation is? Who raised us? Who instilled in us these things? And then who instilled? And we have to have a more of a holistic view of what church, spiritual walks, families, all of those things are. It's not a single generational thing. It's a multi-generational, intergenerational thing. But what you see a kid in the classroom is a reflection of the parent at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, my wife teaches, Jared teaches. I have the benefit of teaching at the college level, and I still get people that at the master's level won't read instructions. They'll be like, wow, I don't understand this. I'm like, well, if you look at the second line of the instructions, go read that and get back to me. I didn't see that. But yeah, we live in a time that is changing. I don't know that it's really all that different from every other generation.
I was about to say that, yes.
I think we just see ideals being repeated. They're just repeated with new technology, new things. It's like sin. There's no new sins.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not creating new sins.
Mm-hmm.
We're just finding out ways to do those sins differently. But I think it's youth ministry is challenging because we're asking youth ministers to do a lot of times what parents don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
We've put this false view of what it means to even have a youth ministry because we model everything in the church after big churches, which isn't always healthy, and maybe most of the time isn't healthy. Because again, I've been part of some of those larger things, and like you said, not genuine, it's not real. And you watch these guys, it's a corporate attitude. These youth ministers are just trying to climb a ladder to progress because they want to be the megachurch.
The more kids you have, the more youth you have, the more popular you are, the better you've done. You should get a raise. You should become a pastor. Right? It becomes this launching pad instead of this is where you are. This is where you dig in. This is your flock instead of a stepping stone or a mile marker. Yeah, we had. I see in the Facebook youth group posts. We had 600 kids. Oh, looking for 700 or something like. What are you doing? What about those kids though?
Yeah, we had a guy that graduated a few years ago, was on the football team, and he came back, and now he's like an associate pastor at one of the larger churches nearby. And one day, like, he called me, and he's like, tell me what y'all's like staff meetings are like. and so I was like, well, we sit down, we take a look at how ministry is going. Are there any things we need to address? There's certain things we need to be praying for, things like that. He goes, you mean y'all don't only talk about numbers? Well, in larger churches, what you realize is is the goal isn't discipleship. The goal is a bigger group because that's viewed as successful.
Bills.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've literally known youth pastors that they were fired because they didn't meet the quota that the senior pastor set. You know, that, okay, you had 600, then why don't you have 700? And how long is it going to take you to get to 700? And, you know, those things. And there's no, in a lot of those settings, there's no focus on the actual spiritual growth of those kids. It's all about how many we can get, because in America, the American church has adopted the American business model and its definitions of success as the definition of success for the church is how big the groups are, how much money we have in the budget, you know, or some people say, you know, it's buildings, budgets, and butts, you know, and that defines success. But man, we're seeing that that's not the case, and it's certainly not the case with youth, because who determines whether a church grows or not?
Oh, God.
Yeah, Matthew 16. Jesus said, "I will build my church." So what if the church that you're at, the church that we're at, it's the size that God wants it to be?
That's where the Lord part comes in. You said plant my roots and just...
Yeah, because you can always grow larger groups by doing something shallower.
Entertaining.
Yeah, and the thing it takes to get them there is going to be the thing it takes to keep them involved. And so so you have a unique challenge as a youth pastor.
Sure.
I think one of the great things with you being connected, being a teacher, middle school teacher, because those are the... We do some of that middle school ministry, and every time I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Man, some of those kids, man, I love them. I love being able to minister.
Yeah.
Man, some of them are annoying. Some of them are, you know, so rude. There's so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing what they're taught or shown, or they're trying something new.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be the weird kid. I'm going to try to be the fun kid. I'm going to try to be the whatever. So it's a kind of a weird mixture of they don't really know what they're doing. They're trying things, trying to be grown up, trying to be a middle schooler, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And trying to be unique when I think as we need to be able to show them, hey, God created unique.
Yeah.
Even if you're a twin, you're still unique in your way. And I think we need to cultivate that.
I mean, we grew up with, you know, the John Waynes and the John McClanes and the Terminators and, you know, like those kind of things. So we all kind of had common thing. But now, social media, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different people. This guy plays this game that I like, and he's kind of quirky like this. I want to be like this. Or this person does their makeup this way, so I'm going to start doing that, you know. So there's so many more influences to draw from and be their own person. And so and what else? Oh, they do their makeup this way, but they also do this other thing. Oh, I want to try this other thing. And they have a friend who does this, so I'm going to try this other, you know. So it gets pretty quickly into a wide spread of, I don't really know what I'm doing. Try to be like this person or that person. Makes it a very interesting mix in school.
And whether they know it or not, they are really being influenced. I've seen my kids listen to Isabel likes this young woman who does like slime. She's a grown woman. She just does like different things with slime, but she has this whole warehouse because she's built a brand on it. And she says like little quirky things. And my little Juices, I call it Isabel Juices. She'll start seeing these little quirky things. I'm like, where did you get that? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and I'll try not to overreact and just be like, okay, just let her feel herself out. You just keep her in the Word. Yeah. Just realize she's in the Word, and just because they're going to be touch points. Because you're right, man. There are so many different people, and everybody wants to be part of these little tribes. It's like little.
There was a time too I noticed a lot of kids would act like they're on a kid's sitcom. They'll start making some joke and like almost like they're gonna turn to the camera even. Well, this is getting out of hand. You know, they kind of like wait for the laugh track to kick in or something. But they attach to those things.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
I want to be like that person. I want to be like that character or whatever. But that's what they're taking in. Hours upon hours of those things. And
kids do it now with the anime stuff they do.
Running really fast.
Oh, yeah, like Naruto.
Arms behind. Well, one of the things that kind of coming back around to this idea that what we see in Scripture is that God has often used young people to do some amazing things. By some estimates, like the apostles that Jesus chose were maybe as young as in their teenage years, or at least in their early 20s, you know, somewhere in that. They were not 40, 50, 60-year-old men. They were all killed when they were about that age for their faith. Timothy, you know, he's pastoring in Ephesus, and this was kind of like, it's been like my ministry theme verse for a long time, was that he says, don't let anybody despise your youth or your youngness, but be an example to the believers in speech, conduct, love, and faith and purity. You have guys like Jeremiah, maybe wrote, I think Jeremiah may be the longest prophetic book in the Old Testament, but if not, it's one of them. But he was young, and when God called him, it says, the Lord came to me. He says, I chose you before I formed you in the womb. I set you apart before you were born. I have appointed you a prophet to the nations. He says, but I protested and said, oh no, Lord, look, I don't know how to speak since I'm only a youth. Then the Lord said to me, do not say I am only a youth, for you will go to everyone I send you to and speak whatever I tell you. Do not be afraid of anyone, for I will be with you to deliver you. This is what the Lord has said. You look at, there were kings that were young. There were all of these people. I mean, and we kind of not excuse away, but almost push away our young people sometimes. Like we don't treat them like they're real people. And it's partly because I think we, have adopted that mindset that they are kids. And we want them to let them be kids, but they're also, within a short amount of time, going to be adults, and we got to help them bridge that gap. And so, I don't know. Yeah, I think this has been good. What other topics we need to cover on this?
Well, we definitely need to have you back, Jared. This is good, man. This happens every single time, too. Like, what do we talk about then?
I don't feel like we even started yet.
No, there's so many things that we want to talk about, man. Yeah, we're definitely going to have this back. Yeah.
It's good discussion.
So maybe as our final word, so at the end we do a final word to the camera, to the people that are watching or listening, kind of something we want to leave them with. So I think there could be a couple of different people we talk to on this one. Okay, normally we just like, okay, what's our final word? Mm-hmm. Think about what would be your word to maybe parents or kids, like youth. Like what's a word you have for either both of them or one or the other that you want to leave them with?
I'll go first if y'all. Okay, cool. So, mine is to the parents. Parents, I know life gets busy. I know there's just so much to do, but we have to be intentional about God. We have to be intentional about God, not just for us, but for our kids. One of the things that I always wanted to do is never pass down my troubles, my burdens. I didn't want my kids to already have those on top of the burdens and troubles that they had. But that made me to think, okay, how can I do this? How can I do this? I have to trust in God and really give everything to him. But that means I had to stop and surrender some of the things that I wanted to do that were fun, or the things I wanted to do, so I could put more time and energy into knowing the word so I can truly pass it down to my kids and then live it. Because the kids need to see victory, but you can't see victory if we don't put time and energy into what we believe. We want our kids to be different. We have to deny ourselves. Matthew 16:24. Deny ourselves, pick up the cross and follow Jesus so that we can be a living example to these kids and not just tell them stuff. The example, because when they get their teenage years, there's going to be so much influence and they're going to be out there, all this noise, and you're not going to always be there. But your word and how you made them feel and the love that they feel is going to be there with them. And then they have a choice to make. I can either listen to my friends and have fun and do this that may lead down a dark road, or I can lean on my parents taught me about God, what God has instilled in my parents and what I've seen about my parents and God. So I just say to parents, just be more intentional about what we tell our kids about God and who we want them to be, because they're not going to be kids forever. We're preparing them for adulthood.
I think, I don't know who mine's to, probably both kids and parents, but a lot of times the message is sent that young people are not important and they easily overlooked. Even in scripture, the apostles and the disciples, their focus was on getting people to Christ and getting the crowds and letting Jesus speak. And even they were like, let's get the kids out of here because they're distracting, they're not important. And Jesus is like, no, how dare you stop the kids from coming to me? Let the kids come. I want the kids to come, which tells me that young people are important to Christ. So much so that his message is simple. He says, believe in me like a child. Mm-hmm. And so I want you parents to know that your kids are important now, not to the future, but now. And I want you kids to know that you are important, you matter. You can change things through Christ who can change you. He's the biggest difference maker. So you're important. Message.
That's good. What do you think?
There you go. Perfect. Social media this is the final take. We tried this 15 times. This is the best version. This is what we're going to put forward. Our family vacations aren't as good as this one. Or we don't have the cool stuff like this person does. Social media is a liar. We're not perfect. We're going to figure our way through this life just like everybody else. So as a parent, you don't know what you're doing. That's okay. Figure it out. Trust Christ. As a kid, you don't know what you're doing. Who are you supposed to be? What are you supposed to? It's okay if you mess up. Trust Christ. He's going to guide you. He will, when the Bible talks about making you perfect, it's about making you whole. Because you're broken. We're all living in this broken world. So when he perfects you, it's not that you don't make mistakes. It's that you're now content. You have peace. You have joy. You have purpose through him. So you don't have to be the perfect kid. You don't have to be the perfect parent. You don't have to have everything figured out. You're also not the main character of the story. Jesus is the main character of the story. And we all follow him. He's the shepherd leading all of us. So you don't have to be the rock star. You don't have to be the person on the stage. You don't have to be the person with 1 billion followers online. Just be you, following Christ, and he will shape you. He will guide you. He will lead you. He will give you peace. He will give you what you don't think you need. The things that you do need that you don't realize you need them. But you're not gonna be perfect. That's okay. Own it. Live in that. You don't know everything. You don't have all the answers. You don't do everything right. And those are all okay because you're just a normal person. Trust in Christ. Follow him. He will make your path straight. He will guide you where you need to go.
That's good. You stole all my stuff. But no, what I think I would leave everybody, we recently had our family camp and we talked about legacy. And there's at least one parent that came by and said, we feel like we've messed up to where we can't fix these things. And one of the things that I shared with them, that it's okay to pause, to reset and restart. And so parents, there's always a great time to start being intentional about your parenting, about what you're sharing with your kids to disciple them or to help them grow in faith. And really, if you feel like you haven't done that, just start to want to grow in your own faith and let your kids be part of that. And you will start discipling them. A lot of times we have this mantra of do as I say, not as I do, but that's the mantra of a hypocrite, because your kids will listen to what you say, but they are going to do what you do. They are going to follow your example, good, bad, or everywhere in between. For kids, I think, so many young people, they're just trying to find out who they are. Use a lot as identity. What is my identity? Why did God make me? Why did he? All of this, and you're not going to find that in anybody else. Just as Pastor Jared said, it's okay to like certain things and follow certain things and all that, but don't try to become those things. Like, be you. And God made you unique. He only made one of you. There's so many things that are unique about you already, and you've just got to figure that out. Why did God make me for his glory? Because he made me for his glory. And so as you find those things out, find your identity in God and in Christ. And when you do that, what happens is you'll have some filters start to come into your life to know when you should do things, when you shouldn't do things, what type of person are you going to become. And so we remember kids are not going to stay kids for the rest of their life. So parents, we're raising good adults, not good kids. We do them a disservice if we try to keep them kids forever. And that's the reason that we have, adolescence now extends to the mid-30s. And that's because well-meaning parents didn't want to embrace the uncomfortableness of their kids growing up. In the Bible, the parent-child relationship changes. It goes from being parent-child, where the parent is in authority over the child, to the child becoming an adult and no longer under the authority of the parents. And so you have to live out your faith, because one day they're not going to be in your home anymore. And if you keep them in your home, you're actually hurting them. You need to help them step into that, because God has great plans for them as well. And so, guys, I think this was a good one. A lot of good stuff. It's a big topic.
This is really good. We're going to definitely run this back. The youth are the future, like we said, man. And we're going to invest in that. Thanks for joining us on the Battlefield podcast. You can check us out on battlefield.co. Check out, we have some resources for being more intentional disciple of Jesus Christ. God loves you. We love you. Until next time, see you later.